The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. My name is Sabina, and I'm the Marketing Manager here at Relevate. Before we get started, I would like to introduce our presenters, Andy Pappas, VP of Database Marketing and Analytics, and Tom Guernon, Director of Sales. If you have any questions during the webinar, please type them into the questions pane, and we'll be answering as many as we have time for towards the end. If we don't get to your question during the webinar, we will email you a response. Everyone who is attending today will be receiving an email with the webinar recording by the end of the week. And lastly, as a reminder, make sure to be present during the entire webinar for your chance to win a smart profile. We will be giving one away at the end of the webinar. And with that, I'm handing over to our first presenter, Tom Guernon.
Thanks, Sabina, and thank you to everyone for joining us today. I'm Tom Guernon, and before we get started, I want to consider a common marketing situation. So your marketing executive is in a leadership meeting, and the executive has decided that they want to know what impact marketing has had on growth, what's working and what's not working, and what marketing is going to do to drive the business going forward. And as seasoned marketers, I think we all know what happens next is, Saturday is trouble. Right? Yeah, Saturday. So the CMO gathers a team together. He lets everyone know the task. He creates a sense of urgency. And then what's the reaction as the marketer, the marketing team? It's like, no, here we are, right? The weekend shot, my month is shot. Going to miss campaign deadlines as I'm scheduling meetings with IT and with finance and with analytics. They would just call us to mail shops and email marketing vendors, and you're pulling together files, building spreadsheets, and doing analysis to answer these questions. That's one scenario, and it's timely, and it's complicated, and it takes you off of your marketing task, which is getting campaigns out the door and driving revenue for the business. Or there's another scenario, which is answering that question of when do you need it? I know exactly how to get that, and it'll take a day or it'll take a few hours. So as many of you know, one of the top challenges marketers have or face is proving marketing's value to everyone else in the company. So the slide we're looking at right now is coming from a current Relevate client. This is a 3-year purchase history, year over year, 2011, 2012, and 2013. And there's a couple of key points that jump out. And the first is growth. You can clearly see growth within these charts. And going back to the executive's question, you can check that box and deliver a very strong answer about where growth is coming from and what marketing is doing to contribute to it. The second is, what's marketing going to do to drive the business? And the other thing that jumps out is you can clearly see seasonality. So in this example, spring and fall are spikes, and summer are dips. So now you can start asking questions in terms of, how do we capitalize on seasonality? Do we need new products or offerings to generate revenue in the summer? Or do you embrace it and ramp up marketing activity and spend at the times where your customers are most active and most likely to buy from you? And then the last point, and this is very client-specific, is in this marketing team, they have immediate access to their data from their desktop. They have all the tools that they need to create this report. And when they get these types of questions, they quickly answer the questions. And they can also look at it and say, hey, what's happening now? They can use this knowledge to take control of the types of questions that they get from their executives. So something that needs to be put on the table from the very beginning of this seminar is there's no magic bullets for database marketing, and the database is not the magic bullet in itself. In fact, what I just showed you is performance report, the 2011, 2012, and 2013. The interesting thing there is before that client was working with us, they had an internal system that used what was many considered to be the industry's leading enterprise-level marketing campaign management database and analytics platform. So before running out and buying some sexy technology, as a marketer, we really need to think about what are the processes that go into database marketing. And in our client example, a lot of the gain that they showed and are able to show in terms of improvements in the business really come from the processes and not so much from the tool. So the goal of this 3-part database marketing series is to share a roadmap for putting together the pieces, process improvement, data, analytics, and technology, and also putting those pieces together that will help you confidently demonstrate marketing's contribution, find opportunity, and then take action. So what we're going to cover over the next 30 minutes or so is, one, level set what database marketing is. We're going to go through a lot of key components of the database marketing program and matching up with business needs. And then we'll also do a preview of parts 2 and 3 in the series, which is modeling and analytics, as well as campaign management. And then there's time for questions and answers at the end. So as Sabina touched on, please submit any questions that you have. And last thing, it is the holiday season, so we'll have a gift for our attendees at the end of the call. So with that, I'd like to hand this over to Andy Pappas, who will lead us from here.
Thank you, Tom. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Andy Pappas, and thank you for joining us today. If you ask 10 people to define database marketing, you might get 10 different answers. You may have heard terms such as CRM, campaign management, SFA or Salesforce automation, channel management, etc. All of these are really components of database marketing. As we start down the roadmap for today's discussion, we should probably work with a common definition for both database and database marketing. The database can be defined as a collection of data and information about customers and or prospects that can have an effect on how a marketer will sell to them. Database marketing, however, can be defined as a customer-based, information-intensive, long-term methodology that uses the database as the source for all ongoing marketing efforts and communications. In other words, it becomes a 360-degree view of your contacts. You like to have access to all the information about them and the ability to use this information as needed. There are at least 4 value propositions that can be attained via a good marketing database solution. The first of those is the breadth of functionality, which includes being able to do both descriptive and predictive analytics, in other words, to get to the customer insight we just mentioned. You also would like to have the ability to do multi-channel campaign management and all the associated reporting. The second proposition would be ease of use. You want to be able to expand the potential user base. As marketers, we don't want to have to be Oracle or SQL programmers in order to get our answers. You'd like to have a system that you can learn via minimal training and can make your staff more productive sooner. You'd also like to have it be accessible to you and your users when needed, from wherever you are. If desired, it can be accessible 24/7, 365. And finally, you like to see scalability and performance. You want to have the ability to work with either small or large databases, and it should have the ability to grow with your business and be able to handle frequent updates daily if needed and heavy usage. Over the next few slides, we'll be touching on the following: understanding the process that we need to go through, gathering and organizing the data, cleaning and enhancing the data, creating all necessary reports, developing sound campaign strategy, and choosing a solution. We'll start with understanding the process. There are 3 main processes within the overall database environment that we're going to touch on. The first being data management or data preparation. Being able to pull together all the relevant and needed information. At a minimum, this should include information on your contacts, transaction history, and solicitation history. Understanding where within the organization this data resides and how it can be accessed both initially and on an ongoing basis is obviously important. And having an understanding of how you will want to use the data once it's been structured. In other words, knowing your goals and objectives can help you allow for better segmentation and allow you to get your better answers on a day-to-day basis. The second main process would be the campaign management. In other words, being able to communicate with your desired customers at the right time via the right channel with the proper frequency while giving them the message and offers that will be most appealing to them. And the third part is the reporting and analytics. You want to be able to close the loop on campaigns by understanding who it is that responded and use that information for more targeted segmentation in future campaigns. You also want to have the ability to produce key performance indicator reports that various departments will be asking of you, such as seasonality results, channel results, product category results, RFM results, etc. The important points of the whole process are: what do you organize, or what data is needed? Where do I find this data? And most importantly, why do I need it and how am I going to use it? Looking at this graphic around the borders, you see the types of questions asked by various departments, such as who's at risk at leaving, why did they last order, what's the LTV? But this also indicates the type of data that exists somewhere within our organization, and it's just a matter of getting to it in a useful manner. At the center of this graphic, we have good data. In effect, the data that has been located, prepared, and organized for daily use. This is a database. On the right-hand side of the graphic, we see how analytics, which is going to be covered in a separate session, can be added into the overall system, and that will allow for even better segmentation capability and refined reporting. Finally, we can see that we have campaign exports from the system. They'll be available for all channels, direct mail, phone, email, online ads, etc. And we will have used the most up-to-date information as part of the selection process for those campaigns. Now we'll talk about data organization. Most marketers are going to include customers, prospects, and transactions in their database. Looking at this particular slide from the top down, we see some of the common tables. Starting at the top, we're looking at customers. And in most databases, you're going to have your active customers as well as inactive or lapsed customers. An additional table that typically is an offshoot of the customer table would be a household table or an address table. This could be very useful because you can obviously have multiple customers, for example, a husband and a wife, in the same household that are your customers, and you want to know the metrics and the value of that household in total to your business. The next table would be the prospect table, and you can have both internal and external prospects. The internal prospects could be individuals that have found you through various searches or individuals that you might have actively sought out as part of generating requesters in a two-step selling process. External prospects are typically brought in via rented lists or purchase lists. Next, you'd like to have transactional information, which would include responders to campaigns, order histories, potentially promotion fulfillment history. You also want to bring in the solicitation history of the people. You want every touch point, regardless of channel, sent to a customer over a period of time. Most databases are going to have at least 3 to 5 years of information, and hopefully you will be able to differentiate by the channel. Every other database may have various miscellaneous tables. In general, you'll have things like demographics and psychographic data, lifestyle triggers, as new movers, new parents, newlyweds, model scores for different objectives, and you might have product tables, what items people are buying, what are those cost points, what are their sell prices, what are categories are there in. The right side of this diagram illustrates the different data extracts that may occur for direct mail or email campaigns, for model scoring, for ad hoc requests, or for input back into some enterprise-wide systems. Next, we'll talk about hygiene and enhancements. Why is hygiene needed? It's estimated that at least 12% of the U.S. population moves each year, and when people move, your database can take a hit. You must stay current with your communication to customers, and you can't always rely on them to provide the change of address or change information. In addition, we see that at least 30% of email addresses change every year for a variety of reasons. People have multiple email addresses, they're changing wireless providers, etc. And again, if you want to maintain effective multi-channel campaign strategies, you need this information to be current. A very important point here is a recent experience study found that 75% of companies waste an average of 14% of their revenue on bad data. So what can be done? The left side of this slide shows the various inputs that we talked about a couple of slides ago, the customers, the prospects, the transactions, solicitations, etc. The middle section of the graphic is going to illustrate the main processing-related functions that typically we'd be going through. The first step would be the validation. Once the data comes in, we want to make sure that it is as expected. We would check for correct data fields and that they are populated and that the counts are consistent to historical norms. Once we're comfortable with that, we can move to the hygiene phase. And typically this refers to address hygiene as far as address standardization, national change of address processing, proprietary change of address processing, and it could also include the C-scrub. You may also have built in some merge, purge, deduplication, aggregation, and suppression processing as part of this step. Within a database environment, you're always going to have linkages. The most critical part of the database is the ability to link tables in one-to-many relationships. For example, we could have one household that can have multiple customers. Each customer in that household can have multiple orders, and each order can have multiple line items. So we need to have the ability to tie this all together, and typically this will be done via persistent individual and household level IDs. Database structures will also have business rules, and they come into play at various times. A common one would be for response attribution. For example, you may want to assign a response to the closest solicitation date, where the response date is at least 2 days after the solicitation date, but not more than 90 days after the solicitation date. Or you may have a business rule as it relates to your campaign selection and your solicitations. Do you solicit multiple members in a household at the same time? For direct marketing, you may not want to do this, but for an email campaign, it might be perfectly valid. You also may have suppression rules. Do you actually suppress or drop records from the database, or do you simply flag them for possible exclusion from campaigns and decisions as you need them? Additionally, within a database, in order to add more power, you like to have the data appends. External data can and should greatly enhance a database. You have your demographics, your psychographics, your model scores, which could be for acquisition, it could be for cross-sell, it could be for retention, it could be for reactivation. You have your lifestyle triggers, new parents, newlyweds, new movers. You might have automotive data. You might append email and phone, or reverse email and reverse phone appends in order to have more contact and touch points. For all these processes, there should be quality assurance reporting. You want to make sure that every step along the way is done properly, because as we saw from the previous slide, if there's one thing worse than no data, it would be to have incorrect or bad data, going back to that 14% of lost revenue to bad data. There's no hard and fast rule as to how often a database should be updated. Really, it could be industry and marketer specific. In general, transaction-oriented tables, for instance, your sales table, should be updated more frequently. Typically, this will be done weekly, or in some cases, it might be daily. Other tables can certainly be done on the same schedule, but it's not uncommon to have them updated less frequently. For example, a product table might only be updated quarterly, a contact table might be updated monthly, solicitation tables for direct mail might be updated monthly, but for email campaigns, it might be updated as they occur. You should also note that the update frequency determined early on can easily be changed at a later date in order to better meet the business objectives as they might change. I'm going to touch on reporting, which will be touched on more thoroughly in a future session. But in general, at a high level, the main types of reports that are typically associated within a database environment are going to be the production reports that make sure that the data received in the original processing steps are all valid. Again, the address, hygiene, and merge purge related reports. You're going to have campaign creation reports, so you can see what is your available universe for each of the desired segments. How do global or specific filters or exclusions affect those universes? What segmentation or modeling techniques can be used for better targeting? Are you using RFM techniques? Are you using modeling deciles? What is the estimated ROI for each segment? And this can be estimated via historical response rates and average purchase amounts. And then you have your campaign performance reports. Determine the actual response rates, dollar sales, and ROI by segment. You can compare those to projections and also compare them to historical results. And then finally, you have your database performance reports, which are your year-to-year comparisons, similar to the chart that Tom described early on. You have your product category comparisons, customer segment comparisons, channel comparisons, etc. We're going to touch on campaign strategy. This too will be covered in a later session, but in general, using all the information at your fingertips, both internal and external data, can greatly help you to make these decisions on who to solicit, when to solicit them, how to solicit them, via which channel, how often to solicit them, and what types of offers to provide. And then via the response matchback attribution process, you will know who responded, and that information will help to determine future marketing campaign strategies. Choosing a solution. So which solution would be right for you? We've been discussing the importance of having good processes in place before considering any database solution. Once these have been researched and reviewed, the question becomes, do we build this ourselves in-house or do we outsource it? The main drivers to this question and decision begin with the internal competencies. Can the necessary hygiene processes be performed internally? Can proper data matching within and among data tables be handled internally? This would include response attribution for campaigns. Do you have data enhancement capabilities for better segmentation or contact strategies? Can you add demographics and psychographics, phone appends, email appends? And even if all these technologies and capabilities exist, do you have the personnel that can use the tools to get the best possible results? For example, during a response attribution process, are you limited to a straight character for character match, or do you have the ability and marketing expertise to loosen the parameters and thus allocate more responses to that particular campaign? Pros and cons of in-house solutions versus vendor-managed solutions. One of the pros for an in-house solution would be that it's designed to fit the current needs. A couple of the cons is that typically it may not be easily scalable. And there could be timing considerations as internal resources have lots of requests on their plates. They have to keep the day-to-day business running. They may have accounting issues, production fulfillment issues. And how often can they realistically go in and make major changes to a database, and how quickly can they make those? For a vendor-managed solution, some of the pros are that usually you're going to have continual improvement to the platform. It's customizable to fit your ever-changing needs at a lower cost, and typically it's going to be user-friendly for marketing teams. One of the cons is that you will lose some internal control. But typically the pros outweigh the cons, and the solution is developed that makes marketing more efficient, more productive, more quickly. With that, I'll hand it back to Tom to start wrapping things up.
Thanks, Andy. So just kind of a quick recap, and we've hit some of the key points for laying out the roadmap in this call. And just really touching on the process. So think about processes and business problems or your requirements before you start thinking software or databases. It's important to make sure get the processes right. There's lots of software or solutions that are on the market today, but just jumping into a tool without really thinking about the application of the business or what you're trying to accomplish can get you off the rails from the very start. The other piece that we've kind of touched on are what are the things that you need to focus on within the baseline processes. So what data drives the business, how do I organize it, how do I keep it clean and updated, and how do I tie it all together? In parts 2 and 3, you're looking at a graph right now, there's an awful lot going on here. But the key pieces I want to talk about is in parts 2 and 3 of this series, we're going to talk about how we take all these pieces and we tie them together, and then how you start taking action. That's kind of what this graph touches on. So we're talking about making sense of how all these pieces tie together and they support a database marketing capability. Part 2 will be from a marketing analytics and reporting standpoint. So what do you need to know about modeling? What do you need to know about segmentation and tracking, as well as business intelligence? And how can I use that information to then feed out into all the things that you want to accomplish as a marketer and as a business? And then the other piece would be looking at it from a campaign management standpoint. And that's really about simplifying, automating, or becoming more efficient in how you execute campaigns, getting more done with less, essentially. Now with that, before wrapping up, please stay on the line for the questions and answers. Sabina is going to lead that, so if you have any questions, please submit those to her through the portal. Andy and I want to thank you for your time today, and want to thank Sabina and the Relevate marketing team for putting this together. And as promised, we do have a gift. It's the holidays, so this free Smart Profile report. I've got a name that's given to me. It's Haley Eisenhart, and Sabina will follow up with you directly, Haley, so congratulations. And with that, I'm going to give it back to Sabina.
Thank you, Tom. We're now moving over to the last part of this webinar where we'll be answering some of your questions. The first one reads, how long does it take to put up database marketing capability in place?
This is Andy. I'll take that. Actually, there's two things. First is creating a database and database marketing. Those are two different capabilities. The database marketing capability, that's always ongoing. As database marketers, we're constantly learning how to do it. But as far as the structure of getting it going, in general terms, without knowing specifically the parameters of your particular situation, we would say it would typically take somewhere between 3 to 6 months to be up and running.
Great. Thank you, Andy. Second question we got, any advice on choosing a database marketing partner?
Andy, I guess I'll take that. This is Tom. So a lot of cases when you're looking for somebody to partner with, I'm going to put that in the context of, Relevate, we're an outsourced organization, so I'm going to put it through that lens. You're typically looking for a couple things. One is their track record of success, right? These tend to be complicated projects or programs. So not only is someone talking a big game in terms of the performance that they deliver for other clients, but what is the project management methodology, how engaged do they let the clients be in the development process so that the client has a voice at the table. Typically want to stay away from anything that is a black box. It's one of the things you hear from marketers all the time. Want to know what's actually happening within our solution and have a voice or a seat at the table. And in some cases, it doesn't always have to be, but we see, or in the market, we see a lot of value from companies that can handle a lot of the capabilities in-house. So not sending data or asking third parties to come in and provide certain competencies, mostly because that can lead to delays, complications, those kind of things. So I guess that's how I look at it. Andy, would you add anything to that?
No, we will be covering a third question. What should I expect the budget for capability?
There's no fixed number. Again, this is Andy, sorry. There's no fixed number on the budget. There's a number of factors that come into play. One, it's going to be the number of records in your database, the number of tables that you want to bring into the database. It would also be the frequency of the update. Is your business such that it would need daily updates, weekly updates, monthly, and so forth? All those factors come into play. Number of users for the database, et cetera. If you'd like to give us a little more specifics, we can give you a little better answer, but in general, it's going to be a lot of factors that drive the price.
Great. Thank you, Andy. Well, everyone, that was it for today. We hope you enjoyed the webinar, and thank you for joining. Have a great rest of your day, and we hope to be in touch soon. Thank you. Goodbye.